Good afternoon. Welcome to the 330 Sports Show. I'm Justin Coffin. Joe Danier and BJ are back behind the scenes. We are downtown Youngstown studio. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. But let's get right into it. We have a two-time Olympic medalist joining us on the show. That is just a very brief bio of her. She has a ton of accolades, but let's bring her on. She is from Northeast Ohio. She joined the show back in the winter, and we welcome her back as now a second-time Olympic medalist, Katie Moon. Katie, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And I was just looking at what is today, August 28th, or 29th, and I'm like, oh, I think it was about 3 weeks ago you got your latest medal.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
So welcome back.
Thank you.
What's the last, I don't know, 2 months look like for you?
Oh man, leading up to the games, it was pretty stressful. I'm not sure when we talked if I was dealing with some tendinosis and injury that lingered throughout the whole year in my Achilles. And leading up, it was just not the prep that you'd want for a major year like an Olympic year. So it was stressful, but I just had faith that it would all come together. I just kept putting in the work. I kept showing up. And so it was stressful, but it was all worth it. I'm just so relieved and so happy it went well on the day.
So when did you actually suffer that injury?
So it was because it's tendinosis, it's just an overuse injury.
Okay.
So there wasn't acute onset. It was just, I just started to notice some irritation in the Achilles in my takeoff foot. So it's not
Okay.
only the foot that I jump off of, but it's also the push out. So it was just creating a lot of inconsistencies because of the pain. And so in March, I want to say right after the indoor season, I got a PRP injection in it. And that worked wonders for my posterior tib last year, which is the inside ankle. But unfortunately, it just didn't have quite the same effect this time around. So it's still lingering, but it's gotten to a point where it's manageable and I'm not guarding it to protect it. I can ignore it now, knowing that, okay, there's nothing structurally wrong with it. It's just pain, which is annoying and can be very distracting. And in the pole vault, if you're not 100% focused coming into the takeoff, because it is so explosive and fast twitch, it can really affect the jump in a negative way. Either you're hesitant, you run through, or you just don't execute the way you need to. So
Sure. Yeah, especially in what you talked to us before about all that, your build up to it, but the actual push off, that has to put so much stress on, tendons, ligaments, all that stuff. So it's
definitely.
crazy.
Yeah, it was, like I said, not ideal. And in the pole vault, you want to be as consistent as possible. And it was just creating a lot of inconsistencies jump to jump.
Well, I would say for the most part, you pretty much you overcame all that adversity, and
Yeah.
you got back on the medal stand. And so, what did it feel like? You go through all that training. Obviously, you're the reigning gold medalist in the sport. You're at the top of your game, and you go through all the adversity to get back there to Paris. This time, it's full of people in the stands. No COVID. Your family is there. Probably some friends are there. And then what was that feeling like, the difference between, being kind of in an empty stadium before with COVID and then a packed house in Paris?
It was different in every way and in the best way. And don't get me wrong, Tokyo is very special. It was exactly what it needed to be, but it did not feel like what I thought the Olympics would feel like. And this did, and then some. It was the loudest stadium I've ever been in. During the prelim, the first time a French athlete ran while I was out there, it was deafening to the point where we were all kind of looking at each other like, is this real? It is so loud. And I was a little nervous that the crowd was going to start turning on the non-French athletes. I'll be honest, but they were wonderful. The crowd was amazing, and it was unlike anything else that I have been in. The closest would have been Budapest, because at one point me and Nina were the only ones going, so the entire stadium was watching. But this truly felt, I mean, the way the crowd would erupt when you would clear a bar, I could hear my family and friends cheering for me when I was on the runway before my jump. And I still get chills thinking about it. It was just unbelievable. And of course, I wanted to defend my title. I battled to try and defend my title, but I truly felt walking away just as happy. I think every championship you go into is its own freestanding meet, and I really don't see it as, okay, this is mine to lose. It was just, Tokyo was its own wonderful meet. No one can take that from me, and I hope that I can do it again. But honestly, with the Olympics, they're so massive that as long as I was walking away with hardware, I was going to be happy. So as long as I had
Yeah.
way, I just wanted to feel like myself again jumping, and it had been a while since I felt like that. So
And you can see, just watching you and some of the other athletes compete, it's like, clearing that bar, that pure joy when you come down and hit
yeah,
that mat is awesome to see because, you know, we might watch it for 30 minutes here or 20 minutes there, but it's I heard one of the announcers say you were competing for up to nearly 3 hours.
yeah, it was a crazy long competition. Usually they only have around 12 of us, and they took 20, 19 or 20. Just the prelim, there were 11 of us that cleared I think it was 455, 450, something like that. And then 9 women cleared the previous height on a first attempt. And so instead of,
Hmm.
doing a jump off or deciding, they wanted a minimum of 12, and they said, we're just going to take everyone, which, to be honest, and this is nothing against the girls. I'm super happy they had their moment in the Olympics, but that's just not what should happen at an Olympic championship. It really set us back. And I think that's a huge we could have probably jumped higher. It was just a long drawn out competition. The standard broke at the end. And so again, it's nothing against the girls that qualified, but I don't think that was the right decision. I don't know
Sure.
what was the right decision, but whether taking 11 or having a jump off or what, but yeah, I just tried to stay focused and really conserve my energy in between jumps and make every jump count, because I knew we were going to be out there a long time. So I really wanted to make those first attempts count. And yeah, so I'm pretty happy with how I handled it and how it went for me. So
Yeah, and that's awesome. And to see, I believe it really got down to just the three of you
yeah,
from at the end. There it was kind of cool to watch because it was like, oh, the pressure's off, not the pressure's off you, but
no,
like your family and friends know, hey, she's gonna medal. So it was
that's
kind of cool.
that's how I felt. Once I knew I had a medal, and this has happened in the past, once I know I've secured a medal, I relax a bit more and I can
Yeah.
jump even higher. And unfortunately, that's right about when that standard break happened. And we had that huge, long waiting time that just should not happen at that point in a competition. I understand it's no one's fault. It does seem to
Sure.
always happen at championships. So I don't know if they bring in new equipment that looks great and seems cool, but then it just always seems to malfunction. But
Yeah.
yeah, all things considered, I absolutely did. I was just so thrilled once I won a medal, and of course I was going for the win, but I was happy with any any hardware that day.
Sure. And it seemed like when we had you on previously, you had mentioned that you and Nina Kennedy, who won the gold this year, and you guys had split the gold at the World Championships the year previous.
Yes.
It seems like you guys have a very, it's a competitive rivalry, but it seems like
Yeah.
a friendship almost too.
I would say so. I really like Nina. We've always gotten along. She's a few years younger than me. So when I really came into my stride, she was really starting to come onto the scene. I know she was a great junior vaulter as well, but I just remember her being like young and excited when I really hit that 490 bar is kind of that big barrier.
Yeah.
And now she's doing at the age that I was doing it at. Like she's really coming into her form and coming into her stride. And it's cool to watch that in real time for an athlete. And obviously I want to win, but you know, she's a sweetheart, and it's, you know, it's fun having a good competitive rivalry. I think it's good for us because it keeps pushing us, but it's good for the sport and fun for the fans to watch. And yeah.
Yeah, and it was really just a lot of fun. I think that was the most, switching between like Peacock and NBC, because
Yeah.
I was like, you know, we're in the medal rounds. Let's put this on NBC. And luckily, you know, being someone, I did not have a Peacock subscription. Luckily, NBC aired it, so we were able to watch like the main jumps between you, Nina, and I forget her name, but she was from Canada as well. Yes. So so that was really, really cool.
Good.
So I saw a graphic that, and to put this in perspective, I think you might have shared it out, but 4.85 meters is basically, if you do the math, it's 15 feet 11 inches, so 16 feet tall, basically. And then you shared a graphic, I don't know if it was yesterday or today, but it was basically like stacking 8 golden retrievers on top of each other. So to put that into perspective, I mean, 16 feet, I just think of a 10-foot basketball hoop and how hard it is for most people, like the average person, to dunk or to do whatever. But like, does that ever come across as crazy to you? Or is there any other comparisons you've seen? It's like jumping over 16 feet tall, you know?
It's pretty cool when you're standing there looking up at it, or when you put it in perspective like that. I think the thing that always makes me think of it is when you're driving down the highway and under the bridges, it says clearance this many feet inches for the trucks. And every time I see clearance, you know, 15 feet, clearance 18 feet, you know, I always think pole vault. So, and
you're like, well, if my car broke down, I could, if I have my pole vault in the back of my car, I could at least get to the top of that bridge.
Right.
That's great. That's great. So as an Olympic athlete, you know, most of us cannot relate to an Olympic athlete. You're literally the best in the world at what you do. What is it like being there with other, basically the alphas of their sport? So, you know, you're taking pictures with LeBron James and Kevin Durant and all these other people there. What is it like to be in the presence of just absolute greatness, including yourself?
Thank you. It's amazing. And I've had this kind of epiphany moment where obviously, you know, you think of LeBron and Simone and all these NBA players as, you know, these just giant figures above and beyond, like they're just untouchable. But when you get to the Olympics and we're all in that setting, we are all winning the same prize. Like we're the best that LeBron can win is a gold medal. The best that I can win is the exact same gold medal, you know? And it's really cool when you put it in perspective like that. And everyone there is someone. Everyone there is the best at what they do and the best in the world. And it's just a really cool environment to be in. It's really, really awesome.
So, you know, I tend to not get like too starstruck if I meet someone. You know, I've ran into a few people here and there. But is there anyone that you saw and you were totally like, oh my gosh, or like the little kid in you comes out when you like meet someone or see someone?
I mean, LeBron was a big one because he was my entire childhood of Cleveland sports.
Sure.
I was in 6th grade when we drafted him, and I remember my classmates doing laps around the classroom when they realized that we got first pick in the draft and we were going to get LeBron. And so he was a big one. And the other NBA players, you know, you see KD, Devin Booker, you see Anthony Davis, all these guys, the WNBA players.
Yeah.
And the golfers, I walked past Wyndham Clark and Colin Morikawa in the Village, and it just was like, oh, these are guys that I watch. I love golf.
Yeah.
I love playing golf. So it was just really cool to think I'm in the same setting as them. Like it was just, yeah, very surreal.
That's awesome. So you competed, I believe your track and field is sort of the second week of the Olympics. So the first, you had the kind of the whole first week that you're there. What are you doing in that meantime? Are you training? Are you checking out, Paris? I don't even know if you're able to do that. So what's that like that week leading up to it?
Luckily, I've been to Paris many times, so I
Yeah.
didn't feel the tourist pull the way that I'm sure a lot of people did, which was nice because at the end of the day, you're there to compete and do a job. And
Hmm.
as much as, you want to do all the fun things and maybe go see the other events, they offered it up to us. And I know some athletes did, but I just knew that I needed to stay in my zone. You train. The first couple days are chaos because you just have to figure out where everything is. You're walking everywhere in the Village. You walk to the buses to get to training. You walk to the food court. You have to figure out where everything is. Plus you have the opening ceremonies. It's just a lot the first couple days. And then you get to kind of sit and
Hmm.
relax. And I really did try to take advantage of that relaxing phase because I knew if I spread myself too thin, it would not be good for me. And I really did want to try and treat it as much like a normal, like any meet that I would as much as possible.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we train. I was still getting in my lifting, my vaulting. But it was nice to have that time to get here, get excited, and then get settled and get ready for competition.
Sure. And you had mentioned you'd been to Paris previously. You had actually studied fashion there,
Yeah.
haven't you, in your past?
Hmm.
So that
Yeah.
was that was kind of cool. It probably brought back some memories.
Definitely. And gosh, I love fashion. As much as I'm always in athletic gear, I love fashion. I love dressing up and I love athleisure fashion. So I feel like Paris just kind of combines all of that. And I'll be
Mhm.
honest, I was worried that if the Olympics didn't go well, that I would always have this tainted memory of it. And I'm really glad that it did because I can forever enjoy it now.
No doubt. No doubt. That's awesome. And so I want to talk to you about the opening ceremonies because you guys are all, dressed in your USA gear. You're on that huge, I don't even know if you can call it a ship or a yacht or
Yeah.
whatever it was, but it is absolutely downpouring. What was that scene like?
It was unbelievable. I'd heard, with the opening ceremonies, it's a lot of standing around and waiting and you're on your feet a lot. And so I see why people miss it. And so I was kind of worried that it'd be one of those things that I didn't love, but I would always regret not doing. I loved every minute of it. And I think because we were in the blazer and the jeans up until the very end, the rain didn't really soak in and it almost made it that much more memorable. I
Yeah.
like we were just all in the rain together, soaking wet. And it just as the boat passed by, there were always people lined up down the street cheering. And then as you get closer to the Eiffel Tower, you're passing the beautiful buildings. And then you get to the Eiffel Tower and it sparkles. And if you know me, that is like my favorite thing about Paris. I just could stare at it for hours. And so when it just lit up on us, I just started crying. It was like I'm like tearing up now thinking about it. It was just the coolest experience. And I think that moment just made me realize how different and how special and how fun this whole Olympics could be. And I think that really helped me kind of get in a different frame of mind from the anxiety and some of the stress and the negative competitions that I had had.
Yeah. So, without getting too personal, I know after the the previous time you had won the gold medal. You said you had a little bit of a letdown
Yeah,
after that.
very.
So, what's your experience been like these last couple of weeks since?
So far, it has been amazing. But I don't know. I won't really know until I start competing again.
Hmm.
I have one more competition in Zurich, and it is uh gosh, when is it? It's next weekend, I believe. I leave Saturday and I'll compete Thursday. And I do feel a bit different this time. And maybe it's because I didn't win. Maybe it's because I've gone through this before. But I still feel pretty good. I will say I'm definitely towards the just season burnout phase. I
Sure.
think I'm ready for the season to be done.
Hmm.
But I do feel different than I maybe did in the past. I do think there is a big letdown, come down off of the Olympic Games, especially winning. And
Sure.
so, yeah, it could be a variety of things, but right now I feel pretty good. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
Okay. Okay. So it's one of those things that like you had mentioned, you kind of get burned out. Any athlete has experienced that, whether it's high school all the way up to, professional top of the game. So what do you do to get away, to like de-stress? I know you're an avid reader. What else like do you do to kind of just relax and have some time to yourself?
I love to read. It's really just getting away from the sport completely.
Hmm.
And that is like not doing any sort of exercise or physical activity. I'm kidding. I'll go golfing, I'll do stuff like that, but
Yeah.
nothing from a workout standpoint, and not doing anything pole vault related for at least a month, if not 5 to 6 weeks. And that just allows me to completely reset and then come back fresh. And yeah, I think a lot of people, younger athletes especially, are afraid that if they get away from it, they'll lose it or forget how to do it. Or if they're not constantly working, they're not working to get better. And it's like, no, rest, not just physically, but mentally, are just as important in the equation of being your best athlete, your best self. So, yeah.
So, and something else, to kind of go back to that. You've done a great job, not just competing, but also like lifting up your sport. You hosted, a pole vaulting sort of competition, really, at your high school. You do stuff at Ashland University. Do you feel that responsibility to kind of be an ambassador for your sport?
Yeah, maybe not responsibility. It doesn't feel like
Hmm.
pressure, but
Yeah.
I want to. I have always said, if I can leave the sport with it just having a few more eyes on it, with more visibility, it's going to leave the sport in a better place, because the more people want to watch it, the more attention is on it, the more opportunities for the athletes. And so, yeah, I definitely love that I can help with that. It's not necessarily my priority. My
Yeah.
priority is jumping well, and I'm going to put it out there, the good, the bad, the ugly. And if people want to watch, amazing. So I hopefully am doing that. But as far as the meet in Olmsted Falls, that was just incredible. And I'm just so happy my town showed up for it and wanted to be a part of it. I'm so lucky. They were unbelievable and accommodating. And it really was, more than anything, I just wanted an opportunity for the women vaulters to have a competition that counted towards
Hmm.
ranking standard, all of that, because it's an Olympic year. Some of the girls needed those marks to get into trials, to get in, to get a higher ranking, or to get standard. And so I wanted to provide them with that opportunity. And I'm just so happy that my school and community got on board with it.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say they definitely have your back up there and in the entire Cleveland area, which is fantastic. All the way down here in Youngstown too. You got a lot of supporters. So,
Yeah,
um,
I'll take it anywhere.
All right. I have a borderline inappropriate question, so I want to get approval from the two of you before I ask it. Are you
Okay.
good?
By the Joe's off camera.
Yeah,
Joe's the owner of our studio down here. So
Amazing. Hi.
all right, hey, Katie. So all of us saw the video of the pole vaulter that whose member disqualified him from his jump, and I want to know two things. I want to know, number one, what was the talk of the village after that happened, and was this gentleman very important after that moment within the village?
I'm going to be honest. I never saw him around the village. The village is expansive. I don't think I saw the same person twice. There are so many people. It's like a city, really. But yeah, that went viral, obviously. And it's just one of those things that,
I made Katie Moon blush.
That was just one of his attempts. So I don't know that he necessarily, that wasn't the reason he didn't qualify, but yeah, he's done very well. I mean, his social media following skyrocketed after that. So
yeah, we said if you're gonna lose, that's the best way to lose, I guess. If you're gonna, you kind of won in the moment too.
It's not a bad way to go out.
Well, I had that question. I was gonna phrase it a little different, but I'm glad Joe asked it before I could. So we'll get you out of here on a couple more because I know you're taking out a lot of your day here. So I want to go back to the Olympic Village and not talk about that or other, Olympians in particular. But what's the food like? What's the situation? Because you guys really are, you're elite athletes. You need to put good food in your body, stuff like that. So what's it like? What's the food like down there? And you had mentioned you're have celiac, correct? So you got to kind of avoid the bread and some carbs and all that stuff.
It was okay. I mean, when you're catering to the masses, it's not going to be, the best food you've ever had. I heard definitely some complaints about chicken not being cooked, not enough food. For me, being celiac, I stuck pretty much to the salad bar. And it was extensive. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't like just a leafy green salad. It was, they had chicken, shrimp, all kinds of meats, prosciuttos, all kinds of cheeses, veggies. And it was basically all gluten-free. So I was still getting gluten-free pasta. And so I was getting a good amount of food. But the problem is I could only really eat that. And so I had the same salad for many of my meals and it got old quickly. So it was okay. Was it the best food? No. But did it work? Yeah.
And when you get tired of that, are you able to venture out?
Yeah. Getting out of the village is kind of a logistical nightmare because it's like a fortress, thankfully, with security. But you'd have to walk a good 10 minutes to get to any place where an Uber could drop off food. But a lot of their streets were closed off. So it was just easier a lot of times to just eat there. Or I would Uber to my family's Airbnb and then order in food there. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so, I'm glad you had mentioned the family. Obviously, they were there. You got to go celebrate with them after you realized you had won the medal and, put the flag around you and stuff. So, talk about how special of a moment that was for you.
That was everything. That's all I wanted in Tokyo. And I was super emotional just getting to go up and hug them and, ultimately thank them because they not only flew across the world to be there, but just everything. I wouldn't be winning any medals without their support. So it was just everything that you would want in that moment. And then after, you go through media, you go through drug testing, and then I met up with them at this little hole in the wall place and we were in the back corner and we just, ate. I had my first glutinous meal and I don't know how long because I was so hungry and I just didn't care. I had pizza and pasta and I didn't care. It was
well-deserved.
It was
well-deserved and well-earned. That's great. So we'll get you out of here in one or two more questions. But
Sure.
what is next for you? Like, what's your plan? Obviously, the Olympics only comes around every 4 years, and that's when the casual sports fan that might only have pole vaulting or table tennis or swimming or gymnastics come to the front of their mind. So, but you're competing all the time. So what is next for Katie Moon?
So I have one last competition on our Diamond League circuit. That's basically our main competition circuit. It's in Zurich. This one is in Zurich, but we'll compete around the world. And then I'll be done. And then next year there's an outdoor world championships in Tokyo. And then after that, we'll just take it year by year. The fact that the Olympics is in the United States is extremely tempting, but it's also 4 years away. And 4 years is a long time when you're already 33 and starting to deal with injuries. So we'll see. We'll just see if I'm healthy. We'll see if I'm still enjoying it and just take it year by year.
Yeah. So that was going to be my final question. So 2028 LA.
We'll see.
33 sounds very young to most people, but like as you mentioned, and as we all know, the peak athletes are in a certain range, but
yeah,
it's not I don't know. I
not
think
out of the question. It's not out of the question, but yeah, 33 when you're asking the most of your body and needing to be in peak physical condition, you start to feel it a little bit more. So
sure,
we'll see.
Okay. Well, worst case scenario, you're gonna be. Hopefully, you get to go and experience as a fan, maybe a competitor. We'll see in the future. But Katie, like literally, I'm gonna make the lamest pun here, but we are over the moon for you. We are so excited for you and so proud of you. Like us being all from Ohio, but Northeast Ohio especially, and to talk to you back in the winter and know the struggles you went through with dealing with injury and whatnot, and to see you compete. I mean, I was as nervous as, well, I'm probably not as nervous as your family and friends, but just watching brought a different experience to, to watch someone compete that, you've talked to and have interacted with. So we are so proud of you for what you do. And it was awesome to see you just represent Ohio in the United States with class. And, we're excited to see what comes next for you as well.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And we, keep in touch, and let's have her back on in a couple years when she's going to LA too. So. But until then, we'll be in touch, and we wish you all the best in the meantime, and enjoy some off time too.
Thank you. Yeah, I will.
All right. Well, take care of yourself, and again, Katie Moon, the pride of Olmsted Falls, Northeast Ohio. We wish you well. Thanks again, Katie.
Thank you so much.
All right. So, guys, that was Katie Moon. Go check out some of her YouTube highlights and stuff out there. She's done a fantastic job, and not just a gold medalist, but now a silver medalist and multiple-time world champion in pole vault. So pretty awesome. Joe, I like the question you got in. That was good.
Did I save?
Well, no, I was gonna ask it maybe in a different way.
Better, or like I was delicate. I felt like I
think it was good because you were off camera when you asked it. I might have
blushed. She totally
it was
blushed.
Good though. I liked it. It was good. We're all it shows we're all a little bit human there. So I mean, I've asked you this before.
Yeah.
I think. But I put it out there on social media before. If you if blank were an Olympic sport, and I think we've talked about this before, what would you be a gold medalist at?
Holy crap.
I think mine would be drinking coffee. I'm an avid coffee drinker, usually 3 or 4 before I get out the door in the morning. That would probably be, I could compete in the coffee drinking Olympics. I don't know what else. Do you have anything?
I don't. Like, I'm so bored.
I bet you could come up with something.
But
I
it,
bet
it
you
wouldn't
could.
be anything in the athletic department. I'm totally worthless.
It doesn't have to be in athletics.
Yeah, coffee's hardly athletics.
Exactly. Yeah, it could be anything.
I will tell
talking shit.
Talking well.
Would you be in the talking
No,
shit Olympics?
you know what? I love trolling, but I'm not great at it. I can't.
You
No gold
know,
medaling for me.
Can I tell you where I think you would medal?
Yeah, go ahead.
The random thoughts department.
Okay, shower thoughts.
So
Absolutely.
if you go follow Joe on social media, just look up Joe Danier on Facebook or wherever. You put some of the most interesting posts out there.
Does it make you think though?
Oh yeah,
100%.
Well, and that's what a good, that's what a good question does, or a good post does. It makes you think a little bit about not just yourself, but your place maybe in the world. So I mean, how cool is that though? Like, we've had Katie on, we've had Melanie on, who's a gold medalist Olympian as well. So I think that's just awesome to talk to someone who is literally the best in the world at what they do. This year, her and Nina Kennedy were I don't know what 0.05 meters would equal out to, but it's not much. But that was the difference between gold and silver for her. And another question I didn't get to with her, but the Canadian who came in third is like a viral, I believe, OnlyFans star in Canada. So what is that?
20 inches.
Oh, so it's not small, but it's not. I mean, so we're talking less than 3 feet still. So not bad. But could you imagine jumping over something 16 feet tall? I mean, that's just incredible. So
I don't know. Again, inappropriate joke. But
that's all right. That's part of what the show is.
I wish they would control that pole after they release it, because I always fear that it's going to lodge itself in a bad place when they're on the other side of the thing.
I have thought that before too, because like and I'm sure they're taught and trained. And I had another question for her about her coach, because she would always go and talk to her coach after each jump, and probably do this differently, start back further, go up further, whatever it might be. I wanted to kind of ask her more about her experience this time rather than the ins and outs of it. But when you see those pole vaulters, they know exactly kind of like when they push off and then when to release, and they get over the bar. The Frenchman maybe didn't put into his calculus, his
engorgement,
his biometrics, whatever you want to say. And as we mentioned, females and males, the different anatomy that maybe other people have to deal with. But
in early civilizations, though, like think pole vaulters would be using that pole to get over the enemy castle, and then so they'd have to use like ninja skills once they were over.
That's
there
a good point. Yeah, you know what? I've never looked up the origins of pole vaulting. I wonder if that's where it actually.
100%.
But who thought of that? Someone's like, all right, let's get this. I think it's 16 feet, like a stick, and I believe Katie in the past had said it was roughly 40 pounds. So you're running.
Holy crap!
You're running as fast as you can with a 40-pound stick, 16, and then you're sticking it to try to get over a castle tower. So you could, engage your enemy or whatever. So
she would be a badass,
no doubt,
in early civilization.
So you think that's where the origins came from?
Oh no, I don't think. I know.
That's
what it is.
All right. No, I think
the Olympic Games were all about like the warriors and
Yeah.
like defeating the enemy. They send
Yeah.
your best guys there to do your thing, and some of the events make sense for that. Breakdancing, I don't think anybody's been broken from breakdancing.
Yeah, that's
gone.
Out. So she kind of kept to her, quarters. So she didn't get to, but I was going to say, if you got to see an event, what would it be? And I guarantee breakdancing was probably not on the top of her list.
No. So let me ask you a question. So if you were, let's just say Team USA had an illness and they didn't have someone to be able to compete and they needed to send Justin out.
Yep.
What event do you think you could actually hold your own a little bit from all of the events that exist
for the entire event?
Yeah, you have to you have to not necessarily win, but you have to not make it obvious that you are a stand-in.
So I would probably do something then in a team sport capacity where you can kind of hide a little bit.
You would be like the relay, the middle guy on the relay
Oh
race?
no, not a sprint. Hell no. Those people are, I mean, if you watch women's track or men's track, like they are the best, especially women's track. Women's track is the best in the world, like not even close. But men actually had trouble with the, with the handoff of the baton. But, I'm trying to think where I could hide myself, because if it's an individual sport, you're going to be exposed if you're not the best. So maybe trampolining, is that for, I know that's a female Olympic sport. Do they do that for men? I think I could, get up there and do a few. No, I'd take that back.
All you got to do,
No.
ingest some estrogen right before and you'll fit right in.
I take that back immediately, because I would totally embarrass myself on that.
Oh, okay. So trampoline's out.
Have you ever jumped on a trampoline in like past the age of 20 for like 5 minutes? It will wear you the F out. It is exhausting.
Your cartilage has shrunk since the time that trampolines were fun.
Oh, I'm aware.
Well, how about like shooting? Like pick up a gun. And the worst case is you're not going to hit the target, but there's some people.
Well, have you seen that meme going around of like I apologize, he's from some Asian country. I don't know if it was Japan or China or Korea, but he's got all the fancy tools, and then the other random guy is just standing there like this. So well,
all you would have to do is come out and like twirl the gun on your finger, and that would what makes it. Who cares what if you hit it or not?
That's
look
a good point.
Look at the sass that this guy has.
That's true. And then I shoot and misfire and it kills someone in the face. That would make you stand out for bad reasons.
That would be a good stand-in one, because it's more device than it is athlete.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I still don't like. I'm honestly thinking like basketball. Maybe it would be like, all right, you guys are gonna have to throw me in a zone. I'm gonna have to be on like the wing, and I'll just go stand in the corner on offense because the rest of you are absolute physical freaks that I can't deal with. So maybe we can get by a couple minutes with me on the court and not put the team at jeopardy. So that would be I don't know.
So big team sport, something like that you can camouflage.
Because if it was like water polo or something, I'd be dead in the water. Maybe
that's second pun of the show.
Oh yeah.
Second pun.
Dead in the water.
Yeah, you did it. That wasn't unintentional.
Like I might actually have been literal there. I might be dead in the water. By the way, did you see any of the female synchronized swimming?
Yes.
It is incredible. Incredible. And actually, Ohio State University is like national champions in collegiate athletics. But watching, like, they would come out and be announced, and like they would do this dance on a platform, then all dive in. Some of those girls, though, are under the water for 25 to 30 seconds, like, which sounds like I can hold my breath for 25, 30 seconds underwater. That's not that big of a deal. But I'm also not like moving in a synchronized pattern, holding somebody up that's about to do 3 backflips over my shoulder. You know what I mean? That's crazy, crazy stuff.
My Fire Stick had a special filter that every event that had either bikini bottoms or a bathing suit came on, like, and so I got dealt every practical sporting event with that filter enabled. So
you really had that filter?
I'm lying, but stop pushing on my story.
Joe is creating an app for the 2028 games so that only filters in.
I've made you uncomfortable.
No, I'm trying to think how to word it. Like, scantily clad athletes, maybe.
Yeah, but they wouldn't accept that. I had to be creative with how I put in there, as if I were sort of like a fashion aficionado.
Sure.
And I was just looking for good representation in athletic wear.
Okay. That's fair. All right. Let's move on.
Absolutely.
But you know,
you need some slides.
I do, but I can talk over it here for a little bit. So let's get back to a little bit of local sports here. Youngstown State, who in the preseason poll is the 23rd ranked team, takes on Villanova in Philadelphia area, who Villanova is the 8th ranked team in the FCS. they travel to Philadelphia, take on Villanova tonight. So August 29th, 2024, opening kickoff tonight for Youngstown State, 6 p.m. game. So we're kicking off in 2.5 hours. Villanova is the team that knocked YSU out of the playoffs last year, so a little bit of revenge factor. How do you watch and how do you listen to this game? That's a good question, because initially I saw it on as ESPN Plus. However, it is not able to be streamed. I believe Villanova's conference does not affiliate with ESPN Plus, so it will be on Flow Sports, which you can purchase online. I believe you can purchase an individual game package for that, for the Youngstown State Villanova game tonight. You can also listen to on 570 WKBN. Joe's very familiar with that network, but you can listen to it live there. But if you don't have Flow Sports and you want to go watch it, and I believe Joe just posted it, you can go watch at the Bunker, which is affiliated. We have Jonah from the Bunker down here all the time, but Double Bogeys, the Bunker, you can watch the YSU Villanova game free of charge there. Go have a drink, eat some of their good food, and hopefully watch the Penguins get a win tonight. I don't know if YSU is going to win, but I'm not going to put a prediction on this game, but YSU is a 9.5 point underdog. And the money line for YSU, if you think YSU is going to win, you want to throw $5 on the game, it's going to pay 3-1. And the over under, the total on this game tonight is 53.5. So opening weeks are very tough from a betting perspective, but obviously we wish Youngstown State the best of luck. And two, we've had Michael Voitis and Tyshawn King as guests on the show down here before. They are two of the captains for the Youngstown State Penguins this year. We wish them and the rest of their team best of luck this evening against Villanova. So, any thoughts on let me ask you this, because YSU, one of my, and maybe I'll take this up with the YSU athletic department, but one of my pet peeves with YSU sometimes is they go head to head versus Ohio State sometimes. And, sometimes it's not most of the time, it's probably not their fault, but, and they're their own entity. They're not worried about Ohio State, but we know down here in Youngstown, most people that are Youngstown State fans are Ohio State fans as well. So what's your thoughts about YSU and Ohio State game time sometimes overlapping? Obviously this week, that's not an issue. YSU's playing Thursday, Ohio State's playing Saturday, but for the rest of the season, it's kind of an issue.
That's the number one discussion that I get when I'm talking with the marketing people with YSU, because of scheduling and because of the overlap in that fan group. It's really difficult. You come to a YSU game, it's in the real middle of an OSU game. And so if you want to do both, it's really tough to be able to pick your target.
Sure.
I don't know how much leeway they have when they're assigned, scheduling times and whatever. But if they could separate those two, I think it'd be making the world of that program.
It would be so awesome if, they could, and they're not going to come to an agreement, but if maybe YSU could look at Ohio State's schedule and say, oh, that might be a night game. This might be a noon game. Let's play at opposite times. Or like you said, a lot of YSU kickoffs are at 2 p.m., which is kind of an interesting time because you're kind of right in the middle. But if it's a game like, if it's a game like I'm going to the Ohio State Western Michigan game next week, by the time Ohio State hits 2 p.m., that game should be hopefully a 30-point blowout. Whereas, YSU fans can watch both of those games. It's just something that has got in the back of my mind before, because most people know I'm an Ohio State alum. I'm, Ohio State, if I had to pick one team, I think out of all the sports I follow, Ohio State football would probably be number one. But obviously I support Youngstown State. I support the Cleveland teams. But if I have to pick one game, I'm watching Ohio State football. Maybe not in a particular week where they're playing Akron or playing, a lesser opponent.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
it is what it is. And it's one of those things, if you're loyal to one school, but have another one that you're right there with too, it might be tough from a viewing perspective if you want to go to the game. Now, if you're in a loge and you can watch the game on TV and be there and watch the YSU game too, that's the best of both worlds. But not everybody has that capability to do that. So I just thought I would throw that out there. So real quick, I'm just going to give you the rundown of the starters, most likely starters for YSU on offense as they go forward for against Villanova tonight. So Bo Brungard, local product out of Springfield. A lot of people probably remember his dad, playing for, player, coach. But Bo Brungard comes back and is going to be the starting quarterback for YSU. Tyshawn King, who I mentioned earlier, starting tailback. Then you got Latrell Fordham, Max Tomczak, friend of the program. Cyrus Traw will be your wide receivers. At tight end, you got Brandon Serrano. I believe he's a Struthers product, so he will be out there, another local product. Desmond Lee, excuse me. David Metzler, I remember him from down in Columbus. Aiden Parker, guest of the show, will be your center. Shane Keenan will be your right guard. And Jason Williams, highly touted player, number 54, right tackle for your Youngstown State Penguins. On defense, start with defensive end. Hunter Allen is your most likely starter there. Across from him, you got DeJuan Martin, also from Youngstown. At your middle defensive tackles, you got Jalen Kreider and Joe Brown. At your linebackers, at your will, you got Devin Johnson. At your middle linebacker, you got Mike Wells. At your Sam, you got Kerrion Martin. And your starting cornerbacks, returning from last year, Jalen Castleberry, great name. And then you got either Isaiah Hackett or Peyton Edwards at the other corner spot. And then at your safeties, you got Stephen Hall, and then you got Makai Shahid at your safety spots to start the year for the Youngstown State Penguins. So that's where we're looking at for Youngstown State. Let's go to real quick to the Ohio State Akron game. I'm going to just briefly get into this. If you didn't see the show, I pre-recorded one on Tuesday, giving a pretty full breakdown of Ohio State for the 2024 season. But the Akron Zips, coming off a 2-win campaign, their coach, Joe Moorhead, is very good. He actually was a former offensive coordinator at Oregon. He's been at plenty of other places, I believe Penn State, but he took over the Akron Zips program last year, and it's not a loaded roster. It's a roster that's going to struggle to win 3 or 4 games this year, but they're going to come in and they're going to compete against Ohio State. But I don't know if that competition and effort will show up on the scoreboard. My prediction is Ohio State 63, Akron 7, but I still don't think Akron's going to get it in the end zone, even though I'm predicting a 63-7 score. Ohio State is 50.5-point favorites, which is insane, with a total of 58.5. Ohio State is, thought to be by most the best team in the country this year. You got basically the top 4 in any order you want to put them: Ohio State, Oregon, and those 2 teams will play this year. And then you got Georgia and Texas. Those 2 teams will play this year. Those are the consensus top 4 teams in the country this season.
Now, am I right that in the last couple of years, Ohio State has beat the spread on those early games, like almost?
You know what? I have not looked into that, but if they have, you might be on to something. It is, I don't care what team you're playing, it is hard to cover 50.5 points. I mean, we're talking 7 touchdowns, and that's still not enough, So it's like you have to beat them by 7 touchdowns and a field goal just to cover the spread. So, but where I will say from a betting perspective, Ohio State, this is just my opinion, I think Ohio State is going to be a very strong running team this year. A lot of times when you think Ohio State, you think of Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave and CJ Stroud and Justin Fields and all these weapons across the offense. And that's true. They have a ton of weapons at the wide receiver position, and Will Howard now at quarterback, who's going to be a dual threat. But they are absolutely loaded in the quarterback room. Their backup Devin Brown was competing for a starting spot last year as well as this year. He's the second in line, but there is a true freshman named Julian Sayin. He actually committed to Alabama out of high school once Nick Saban retired, got in the transfer portal, went right to Ohio State. He is your future at quarterback for Ohio State. So Ohio State, I expect to throw the ball a little bit when they're up by 6-7 touchdowns, because you want to get these guys some action, not just take the snap, hand it off to the running back, be totally predictable when you're up by, 5-6 touchdowns. But they also want to get ready for that Oregon game. And if there is an injury, God forbid, at a certain position, you want to have your backups ready to roll and not inexperienced. So we'll see. But I think what you said there, I think it's hard for Vegas to judge these early week games. And I think if you can get ahead of the books a little bit, that might be your thinking. But, you have to play your own narrative in your head. You're like, if Ohio State's going to be a total running team and they're just going to run out the clock at the end of the game, probably going to bet the under. But if they're going to be dual threat and they're going to run it and pass 50-50, but they want to get some of these guys work with these explosive playmakers, 56-0, 56-3, that's not out of the question. And, they've put up 70 or more points several times. There's no way Akron is scoring multiple times on this Ohio State defense, probably the best in the country. So if I were a betting man, which sometimes I am, I have
most of the time
since it's become legal, I would bet the Buckeyes to cover the spread.
It's only been legal for less than a year,
more than a year. It became legal January 1st of 2023.
So were you a bettor before it was legal?
No, I was not.
No,
in Vegas. Every now and then, if I was in Vegas,
okay.
But I'm making my first return trip to Vegas later this month. Well, later at the end of September. But I have not been to Vegas in several years. So previously to 2023, I had not placed a sports bet since Vegas. So yeah,
I was an illegal bettor for all of 10 years.
Okay.
So
am
I allowed to admit that?
I don't. If the IRS is, gets a hold of a clip, you never know. So, but you lost all those winnings.
Totally lost. They owe me money.
Yeah.
The IRS
way down.
So,
So there's that. All right, let's transition real quick to baseball. We're not going to talk a whole lot about it, but the Guardians, who gave up a 9-game lead in the Central Division. The Royals won the first 3 of 4 in the series. The Guardians did salvage the final game of that. The Guardians take on the Pittsburgh Pirates this weekend. So that's kind of a cool, your Pittsburgh, Cleveland, but Pittsburgh's struggling. Cleveland's got a lot to go. I think there's just under 35 games left to go in the regular seasons. Cleveland holds a 1-game lead over Kansas City, a 3.5-game lead over the Twins. But if you look at the overall records, the Yankees are only 2 games up on the Cleveland Guardians. So the Cleveland Guardians, if they can get a 1 or 2 seed, that should be their goal by the end of the year. And if I told you at the beginning of the year, and I know the Guardians had a huge lead, but if I told you at the end of, in January or February, that the Cleveland Guardians would be 1 game up in the AL Central, every single person watching this, listening to this, hearing that would bet on the Cleveland Guardians, or they would take that hands down, because even me, I'll admit, I had the Guardians going 81-81, exactly 500 this year. They're only 5 wins away from hitting that. And their over-under coming into this year, I think, was 78.5. So they are only 3 wins away from hitting their over for the 2024 season. So that's our baseball talk today. That's about all we're doing. I have a ton of news and notes. So we're going to just fire through this real quickly. And there was something really cool that happened in baseball that I've never seen before. I don't think it's ever happened, but there is a player named Danny Jansen. He plays currently for the Boston Red Sox. Previous this year, he played for the Toronto Blue Jays. He made Major League Baseball history, so I stand corrected. It is the first time as the first player to play for both teams in the same game when the Red Sox they resumed play in a game against his former team, the Blue Jays, this past Monday. So the game was paused while Jansen was at bat. So he will actually catch. He actually caught against his own pinch hitter. How wild is that? Because the game was suspended by rain or weather, and then he was traded midway through the season from back a few months ago, and then he ends up playing in the same game on the opposite team that he was playing on. So played for the Blue Jays and then obviously switched to the Red Sox. So that's a really cool thing that I've never seen happen. And actually no one ever has, because it was the first time ever.
Never happened.
So, Joe, I want to get you, have you ever, and you're a business owner, so I'm sure you've had to do this before, and you don't have to give an example or name names or anything, but have you ever fired someone?
Yes.
Have you ever fired someone on social media where they didn't know they were fired until they read about it?
No.
Okay.
Not a one time.
Well, guess what? Scott Service was fired by the Seattle Mariners, and he found out via alert on social media.
Oh.
Do you think that's good business practice?
I don't think so.
No, that is not doing right by anyone. And I mean, if you're gonna fire someone, bring them in and have a conversation. Be a man. Sit down face to face and talk to them about maybe you're just an asshole and you don't deserve the job. Maybe you're not very good at your job. Maybe you made a couple mistakes and like they want to replace you with someone they think might be better. That's fine. That's all well and good. But talk to the person about it. Don't let your social media team tweet it out or put it on Facebook or whatever for your actual manager at the time to find out he was fired. So kind of wild there. Thoughts on that?
That's wrong, man.
That is wrong.
Do we have a name for someone who might be responsible for the most passive aggressive firing of all time?
That is. I think it's called.
I need to know who has a vagina out there in the firing department.
Well, what if that? Well, maybe the general manager's a woman, and you were not just
then it's
speaking
literal
in
and metaphorically.
Yeah. All right. Next crazy.
Sorry
thing.
for bringing the show level down by 3 octaves.
We started out with an Olympic gold and silver medalist, and now
Yeah.
we're down to this. But that's okay. That's what makes this show fun.
That's right.
So, have you ever watched Canadian football?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you name one team?
Not a
Okay.
chance.
The Rough Riders. I think there's two of them. Saskatchewan.
Wasn't Rough Rider a brand of condom that came from Canada as well? Rough Rider? Sounds about right.
Probably.
Probably not a very good brand. Like we all know, the Trojan is probably the primary brand, and Rough Rider is sort of like an off brand.
Let's just stick to Canadian football
Oh,
here. Okay.
You brought it up.
The Argonauts, I think, are another team. Toronto.
Not a brand.
But in Canadian football, this blew my mind when I read it. So, in a Canadian football game, a missed field goal that goes through the end zone. So, and like, how you can miss a kick, but it can go through the end zone. So the Canadian goalpost is actually, I believe, on the goal line or a couple yards past it. But if you miss a field goal in the Canadian Football League and it goes through the end zone, it's worth 1 point. It's worth 1 point. I'll tell you what I'm laughing about here in a minute. But so the point I'm trying to make, in a game the other day, it was tied. They missed the extra point, they missed the field goal, and they still won the game. They still won the game because of a stupid rule. So just thought I would share that. Joe,
Yeah.
What'd you find out?
Well, Rough Riders condoms come in a paint can size distribution. So
40, looks like a
40
40
of them.
pack. Yeah.
So when you have an active lifestyle, sometimes you need the lifestyles.
I'm impressed that you knew that. Do you visit Canada? Visit Canada?
I don't even know if they're from Canada.
Okay.
But because of the connection between the Rough Riders franchise,
Looks like you could buy it for $20. Five hearts too, not even stars. So there you go. How about it? Okay. So
how did I know that? I have no idea.
moving on. Moving on. Nice little branch. Maybe they'll become a sponsor.
Would you accept their sponsorship on the 330 Sports Show?
Sure. Why not?
Brought to you by Rough Rider Condoms.
I'd be proud to read that ad.
Studded for her pleasure.
Why not? Why not? It all sounds very positive.
Okay.
So we all know college football there was a week 0 last week. There was one game that, a lot of people got into, Florida State, Georgia Tech, but this is the real college football kickoff this weekend. This is week 1. Obviously we said YSU's playing tonight. Ohio State kicks off Saturday, a bunch of big games coming up on this weekend. And this is the true kickoff to football season. So you get, college football this weekend, you got NFL next week, but I love little traditions about college football, and some are little, some are big, like dotting the I. Clemson runs down the hill before they come in. But this is one I actually never knew about until recently. I saw this video and I saw this Instagram post by Notre Dame. So this area, obviously very Catholic area in Youngstown. So a lot of Notre Dame fans around here as well. But I thought this was really cool. So Notre Dame Stadium, in their end zone, they have these diagonal lines. And if you count, in each end zone, there's 9 diagonal lines. So what's 9 plus 9? It's 18. What year was Notre Dame founded? It was founded in 1842. So the 18 represents the century, and then the 42 is the degree it's slanted at, which is kind of cool. And those diagonal lines actually point to the Golden Dome, which is obviously big at Notre Dame. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing. And there's so many of these traditions.
Are you a National Treasure fan? The movie?
I am. Yeah.
There's a 3 coming out.
Oh, is
there?
They're
filming it. They're scripting it right now. And that's some of the stuff, like when you build sort of mathematics and the history of things. So looking forward to that.
That is cool. Like little, just like things the normal everyday person wouldn't pick up on. But then, when you maybe someone that hears this, you're a Notre Dame fan, you can share that with someone. That's really cool. And whether you like Notre Dame or don't like Notre Dame, that's just like an interesting little tidbit that's kind of a fun.
Did you know Ben
story.
Franklin was Irish and also a leprechaun?
Big Notre Dame fan, even though the university didn't exist before he died.
Yes.
So
Ben Franklin,
the lightning bolts. Ben Franklin. What was the pen name he wrote under?
Silence Do Good.
Silence Do Good. Yeah, and didn't he invent the printing press? And he's the only president or the only non-president on money,
bill,
100. So pretty cool stuff.
He's
See, you get a
important.
little bit of everything on this show. You get Rough Rider condoms, you get Ben Franklin and Notre Dame trivia, you get an Olympic gold medalist. I mean,
and Paul Walter, whose member disqualified.
We get everything on this show.
Across the board.
It is that's what makes it fun. All right. So since it is college football season,
I feel like I've corrupted you, Justin. You were so straight-laced when you started the show.
I am pretty straight-laced.
And I've added an element of deviant to this show.
That's okay.
And I apologize, and you're welcome.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. No, sometimes it's like shit, you just got to say what's on your mind, and that's okay.
That's what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm sure any of the listeners, like when this goes to podcast, that when we had Katie Moon on, have since long dropped off after maybe your pole vault junk question too.
That was that was
good.
That's what people want to know.
No, that
really is.
That's true.
And I'm sorry for ruining the actual iteration.
No, I loved it. I loved it. It was great.
Can you share with how you were going to phrase it? Do you know?
No, I really don't even know. And I just try to sometimes when I go scripted and I have questions, I try to script things in like a meaningful way that makes sense. But then when you start having that conversation and listening, like she says something and then that backtracks me to something I was either already talked about or was going to talk about. And then I get off script and then it kind of goes every different way.
I didn't use the word junk specifically because I had to up the game
the class,
because you were
the class
for
level.
sure.
Yeah.
Were you going to use junk? Did I mess with that?
I was probably gonna say anatomy.
Anatomy?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Member was okay.
yeah, no, it was good. It was good.
Thank
So
you.
it's good. It brought, you know what? And anything that brings attention to that sport in a positive way is probably, it's like all what's it called? All news is good news kind of thing, or all
I wouldn't have
I don't
asked her, but I'm going to ask you.
yeah.
Do you think that dude got laid a bunch after that moment? Because that was good for your stock value, for sure.
I think he got popular after that. I'm not
You're not
getting
answering.
I'm not getting into numbers. So I'm just saying no comment.
Body count plus number, right?
I'm sure it
Even
increased.
integer,
Yeah.
positive number.
Well, I know it definitely didn't go down. I can
For
tell you
sure.
that much. So, okay, let's move on. Let's move
I'll
on.
stay here all day.
Still
dude.
talking college football.
Still
Talking college football. But Joe, I know you're not the biggest college football fan. You watch it occasionally and stuff like that. But hypothetically, let's say you are the biggest college football fan, and I have those people in my life. Would you go to a fall wedding on the biggest college football Saturday of the year? So let's just say you are the biggest Ohio State fan or biggest Michigan fan out there. One of your friends, who might no longer be a good friend of yours, decides to get married on Ohio State Michigan weekend. I don't know what they're thinking. You got 51 other weeks out of the year. You can do that. But they get married, and the wedding, let's just say, is at 2:00 in the afternoon. So that's third quarter, and that wedding's going to last into the end of the game. Are you going to that wedding?
So I have changed my viewing habits.
Okay.
Based on what Fire Stick does for me, or YouTube TV in Fire Stick, where I can watch an entire game in 41 minutes, playing every offensive and defensive play, skipping all commercials and any standing around doing nothing. So I actually prefer not to watch the game live anymore, because that's a 3-hour investment when there's only 41 minutes of stuff, action happening on the field.
It is.
So I don't like weddings at all. But
so you're just maybe going to the reception.
Yeah.
But
I do tell people, don't tell me what happened, because I want to watch it as if it were live.
Impossible.
Yeah,
especially a game that big.
The DJ comes on and says, "That's the score," and you're like,
"Yeah,
ruined it."
Well, and whatever team it is, if that, if they have a bunch of people in the wedding or whatever. But again, if
you have your wedding, do you show the game and upstage the bride? Because the bride would be pissed about that.
I think if they had the wedding on, let's say it was Texas, Oklahoma, and the wedding's in Texas, and half the people there are huge Texas fans, they're probably not going to the wedding. They're just going to be like, we'll see you at the reception later that night. If it's a night game, you can probably have the game on at a bar in the reception area.
That would be tacky to have the game on at the actual wedding.
At the wedding,
the reception's good.
But people are on their phone, like looking down, and
might as well put it up on the top left corner, and you'll still be there.
It's pretty bad though. Like for me, if it's a wedding and it's not a big game, that's one thing. But if it's a big game, I'm going to be distracted during that wedding. I'm going to tell you that first and foremost. So
do you think that's a consideration when you're doing wedding planning? What stuff is going on at the same time?
I think if you're a college football fan or a certain fan of a certain sport, yes, for sure.
And would you be pissed at somebody if they didn't show up at your wedding because of a college game?
Probably, but if it was mine, I wouldn't schedule it on that day. I'm having the summer like a normal person.
Those are considerations for brides to be.
When's your anniversary?
July 13th.
Okay, so smart. Right in the summer.
The midst of nothingness.
Yeah, that is literally the weakest time on the calendar of sports. So you and your wife, smart people. Smart people. So.
I voted for that one specifically for. No, I did not.
No, I love it. I love it. All right, so NIL. We've talked about this was a couple weeks ago, but Pitbull, Mr. Is it 305? They call it Miami's area code. But Pitbull is in agreement with FIU, Florida International University, to name their football stadium Pitbull Stadium. Thoughts?
You've got way too much money, dude. Because any other company that can actually get the brand exposure, you cannot. That's just
No.
throwing and lighting money on fire.
That is very, very true. Okay. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
You had actually already brought up National Treasure earlier in this show. Who's the main actor of that show?
Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage. So do you know a role Nicolas Cage is going to be pursuing that deals with the sports world in the near future?
No.
I'm going to put this up on the screen. He's about to play the biopic of John Madden. Can you see that?
No.
That is, I would feel like that would be a lot of prosthetics.
Or 750 tacos. He needs to put on some weight.
Now, I don't know if he's one of those guys that's like a method actor.
I am telling you, dude, that, him and Tom Hanks, I think I have been so surprised the roles that he's been able to play.
Yeah.
That I'm blown away with how they play those roles.
Now, Nick Cage is a pretty eccentric guy, so he's probably a good fit for that. I just don't see the look, so that's going to be interesting. But like you said, like guys like Tom Hanks, I think a guy like Bradley Cooper is one of those, they call them method actors, and they like dive into those roles, and they engulf themselves in everything there is to know about that thing they're studying, that person they're studying. So I don't know. I think that's going to be an interesting looking comparison between him and John Madden. So we shall see. We shall see what they do.
Honestly, though, that football fans will hold him accountable for how well he plays that role, because it's unmistakable. You do it wrong and they're going to pummel you.
Frank Caliendo, have you ever heard that name? So he's a comedian that does all these impersonations. He does the best. He looks nothing like John Madden. He's like a shorter guy that, like, John Madden was this huge figure, like larger than life type guy. Frank Caliendo is the shorter guy, doesn't look anything like him, but he imitates him like it is like you close your eyes, you're in the room with him. So the voice and that kind of stuff will be interesting to see how they portray that.
So is it, and this is just me, biopic or biopic? Which is it?
I think it's a biopic.
Biopic?
I think biopic sounds like surgical or medical. Biopic?
I'm looking into it because I think I'm right.
I think it's a biopic because it's like a biography of their life.
Biopic. I'm going with biopic.
I'm going to stick with biopic.
Do you want to put money on it?
One of us is right. Yeah.
You want to do $10 on the biopic?
$10.
Okay.
$10. Who tells us the right answer, though?
It's a good question. I think if we get,
when I win, you can parlay that money into a future bet.
I have to find someone objective who will find out not only their opinion, but also reference things like dictionary.com and places that will enunciate.
So if you go out and you interviewed 100 people, if it's biopic or biopic, I'm thinking like 75% are going to say biopic.
Listen,
it also
the
depends.
Majority of people are stupid in the United States too, so that is not a good
George
qualifier.
Carlin used to say, like, think of the average person in intelligence. Half of the people are dumber than that person. So yeah, not wrong.
By next show, I will have an answer for you, and I won't just go to support my answer.
Biopic.
It's biopic.
I'm going with biopic. Joe is going with biopic. I think. I know.
It's all about the syllables. All about the syllables.
Very true. Tomato, tomato. So I thought this would interest you. Next year, 2025, there is going to be a baseball game at Bristol Motor Speedway featuring the Atlanta Braves and Cincinnati Reds. So Bristol, Tennessee.
That is a big stadium.
That is enormous. So that should be very interesting. I don't know how the picture kind of shows how they're going to configure it, but I don't know.
Have you ever been there?
I've never been there, but I've been to speedways, and they are enormous.
Well, this one is a really small track, but the angle of the seating makes you so close to the action. Even though it's a big place, you're going to feel like you're on the field in that place. It is such a weird thing because the angles are so sharp.
Okay.
That you almost feel like you're falling forward into the action. That will be a great venue for a baseball game.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Good talk about that, because it's like literally the infield will be the infield. You know what I mean? But you're saying the angles are so sharp
So
that
good.
even though if you're way up top, it's still going to feel
Heck yeah.
close to the game. Okay. I like that. I like that. So if that works, maybe they do more of that in the future. All right. This is we'll do a couple more of these before we get out of here, but here's an interesting thought. And like this might be one of those good ones you post out in the future. So there was a study done that people who stay up late are more intelligent than early risers. So
Shit.
are you an early riser?
Yes.
Okay, by your comment, I figured that. But I'm kind of in the middle here because sometimes I stay up really late. Sometimes I wake up really early. Where I struggle is in the middle of the day, like right now.
And I feed you bourbon. Like
yeah, no, that helps me. But like, but you think like, what's the advantage to you of waking up early versus staying up late?
So once 8 o'clock hits, my email, text messaging, and phone calls go crazy. So I really can't get anything done. So I wake up about 4:30 and I've got a good solid 3 hours to mess with everything I need to respond to in quietness.
Okay.
And then the day is ready to begin.
Okay. All right. So maybe for a business owner or, someone running a company or doing different things, you're avoiding the distractions of the actual work day. Yep. So you can get a couple hours ahead of things in that sense.
100%.
That makes sense. But whereas, if you're responding, like there's usually like a cutoff line of like, don't text people after 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock on a weekday because, maybe they're sleeping or whatever. But that's an interesting way of looking at things. I've always heard that thing of like, well, let's get an early morning workout in because, that's better for you. It's like, well, is it better for you if you work out from 6 to 7 a.m. versus 6 p.m. to 7 p.m.? Like you're still working out that hour. So I don't know what the difference is there. I know maybe better sleep or whatever, but that's always interesting for me.
And honestly, like consistency wise, I can't like sit in the sauna for an hour if I do it in the evening because there's so many interruptions.
Yeah.
But I wake up at 4:30. If I jump in there at 5 o'clock, like nobody's gonna bother me and make me do something. I could just like take my time.
You get like me time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. I like that perspective of it that way. Okay. Someone posted this on social media and I wanted to get your thoughts on this. So on the left side, these symbols are okay. So the Kansas City Chiefs, the Florida State Seminoles, the Atlanta Braves, and the Chicago Blackhawks. Those are okay symbols. But obviously we have gotten rid of the Washington Redskins and Chief Wahoo from the Cleveland Indians, which, still a lot of people are very, very disappointed about, especially Chief Wahoo. Now, if I'm of Native American descent, I probably have a different opinion than just being a traditional white guy on this topic. But what say you on the logos that are okay to use versus the ones that are not okay to use?
I would venture to bet that Native Americans don't really give two shits about it. Like, I think it's a bunch of, white people who, virtue signal into something they want to be, that noble standpoint of like, we don't want to appropriate your cultures and customs. And so like, I think it's very temporary. I think we get 10 years in the future and I don't think we care.
So the reason I brought this up, is, well, one, I'm a little bit bitter that like the Guardians name doesn't bother me, but I preferred the Cleveland Indians because one, Ohio was rich in Indian history. Literally the name Ohio, I believe, means big river in Indian, in some sort of one of the Indian languages. But you look at Kansas City, the Chiefs, and you look at the Atlanta Braves, they're literally, their fans are doing the tomahawk chop in the stands, but the Cleveland baseball team can't have the name Indians on it. So I know this is going back a couple of years. I understand the Redskins. I can understand that because from, hearing a Native American speak previously, this was when I was in high school, that'd be like them saying, the New York honkies, or, whatever. Like,
Would you mind it though?
To me, no, but like
Right.
there's certain words
Like,
we
I would
all
really-
know you can't say in this country.
But I would really like to find, like, I think we have offended people who are offended on behalf of other people.
Yes, that is 100% true. But there are certain people who I think, and we know the words you cannot use and cannot say. But
What are those?
I just
I'm
picture
making
that.
a list.
If we go back to that South Park meme of Randy Marsh, there are certain words you cannot say, and I get that. And going back to these logos, where I think I can understand people of Native American culture, the Redskins was a derogatory term, from what I understand, and then Chief Wahoo is a cartoon depiction of a Native American that some people might be offended by. I can understand that. So they sort of they kind of like worked the Chief Wahoo out of like the Cleveland Indians culture for several years, where it became just a little logo on the sleeve. And then by 2015 or 16, it was completely gone. You never saw him anymore.
Well, I feel like, if there's truly something that is offending someone from a branding and business standpoint, you don't want to do that. You want to alienate people.
Right.
I don't think this is the case. I think this is completely concocted by non-Native Americans.
Like you said, it's virtue signaling.
Yeah. So like Irish people don't care if the Fighting Irish are part of their thing. They almost take a little bit of pride in it.
Right.
It's mockingly and it's sort of stereotypical, but they're not wussies, and they'll live in that branding. So leave it up to the teams. I don't think pressure should be put on a team to change it unless it's really bad for business.
Well, I will tell you, those two teams caved. Cleveland caved and Washington caved. And now Washington has the worst. The Commanders, nobody likes that. I know they're already in like branding meetings to change that. Nobody likes the Commanders in Washington. The Guardians, I think, is still one of those things, like people are going to still call them Cleveland Indians, and that's fine. That's up to them. But we're past that point. With Florida State, the Seminoles, the Seminole tribe actually gave them the okay to use that. And the Blackhawk, to me, it looks like that's something you'd be proud of. Like, Blackhawk,
they were fierce warriors. Exactly. Absolutely.
And you still see high school teams doing it, and they're not changing. Just a couple of years ago, I coached against a team, Indian Creek, which is not too far, from Columbiana County, and they were the Redskins. It's like a high school team can do it, but an NFL, but I guess that we're talking different.
Yeah. So I totally understand if there's really alienating some customer base and that's bad for branding, but really all we have is a bunch of, Starbucks drinking, Ugg boots wearing, furry coats, whatever.
Right.
Those are the people that are totally,
and
offended.
they're making the decisions on that.
Screw them.
So, last thing, Joe, before we get out of here.
Yes.
Speaking of mascots, how many of those on the screen have you disappointed? Sparky, McGruff, the Crime Dog, Smokey, and the Dare Bear.
So what's the question?
How many of those mascots have you disappointed?
Disappointed?
Yeah, like Dare, say no to drugs, say no the no smoke, the class. I've seen you out there smoking cigars.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of drugs.
Marijuana is now illegal recreationally.
Yeah, the Crime Dog, I can see, but he's such a snitch. Like, there's better ways of handling that. I'm gonna say Smokey the Bear, like the arson guy, is probably the guy that I support most.
You do take camping trips. Have you ever burnt down a forest unknowingly?
Not on camping trips, but at my homestead, I've lit some fires.
McGruff the Crime Dog, have you ever
No, I think he's doing a good job.
Yeah. I'm probably, for me, I don't think I've knowingly committed a crime. Sparky, I've never burned down a house, knock on wood. Smokey, never say no to forest fires. And
So
the dare drug, the dare whatever bear, which I didn't recognize. No, that's a lion. Never recognized the lion, but I've had like maybe 20 cigarettes in my life, probably in the state of Nevada and Las Vegas. Had a cigar here and there, but I feel pretty good.
I like them all. I think they're at least trying.
Yeah, they're respectable.
They're
mascots.
admirable.
Yeah,
they're not effective, but they're admirable.
So do you see what we've done on this show? We started with an Olympic gold medalist, and then we went to junk talking about not getting over the pole vault, and then we went to Canadian condoms.
Yes,
and then we went to multiple other random things, and then
a biopic,
biopic of Nick Cage playing John Madden, and now we're talking about which mascot have you disappointed the most in your life. So there's that.
It's like a ski slope. Like it started off high,
a bell curve,
at the bottom of the curve. We got to end it on a high note.
Yeah.
So what's the high note?
Oh boy.
Do you have the high note?
Well, it is college football season, so I'm excited for that. NFL started. Oh, we can go one more. We can go one more then. So a high note.
It has to go like this. You're going to get no loft.
Well, we'll get a little bit of this. So we had a potential member of potentially the Cleveland sports Mount Rushmore on, at least from the female side. So if you had to, the Mount Rushmore of Cleveland sports, LeBron James, I think that's a no doubter. Jim Brown, I think that's a no doubter. Bob Feller, probable no doubter, and Jesse Owens unquestionably is on that list. So I think that's ending on a high note, right? The Mount Rushmore of Cleveland sports. Now, if you grew up, more of our era, you might say, you're still going with LeBron. You're still probably going with Jim Brown because everybody knows who he is. Some younger people might not know Jesse Owens, but he's a great legendary figure. And Bob Feller passed away a few years back. You might not remember him, but you could throw on, Manny Ramirez or Jim Thome or Kenny Lofton or whoever your favorite Cleveland athlete is. So
of those four, who do you think got closest to the Wilt Chamberlain body count number?
Probably Jim Brown.
Jim Brown did?
Oh, yeah, probably Jim Brown.
I was going to go with Jesse Owens.
Oh, no way. Jesse Owens is like, yeah. We're back down to rock bottom.
Why did it needed a little bit of a dip?
No, that was good.
Little bit of a dip.
That was good. I liked it.
It was subtle.
Yeah, it was subtle but good.
Do you have any Brown stuff to talk about today?
Not today,
okay.
Because I figure we save most of that for next week. It's kind of, they set the 53-man roster. They ended up settling on 4 quarterbacks, although today they cut Tyler Huntley. They only had 2 running backs, but I believe they're bringing back Deontay Freeman. Obviously, when Nick Chubb comes back after probably week 5, he'll be back, or at least we hope. That will be the plan, to bring him up and probably, send somebody to the practice squad.
Do you expect us to see a running back that has been with us before brought back into that running back room?
No. I think you're going to see Deontay Foreman, who does wear 27 in that backfield. He's had a couple injuries this preseason, like one scary one where he had to get like life flighted because, but he ended up being okay. But I think he is the one that he might be one of your workhorse backs, but Jerome Ford is a serviceable enough back to get you through the first 4 weeks. And then you throw in Deontay Foreman, who can, be a kind of a ground and pound guy. He's not going to like break off a 60-yard run, but he can get you 5-6 yards or tough 3 yards or, a goal line score. And then you got your kind of wild card guy in Pierre Strong, who is super fast, but really just hasn't had a chance yet in the NFL, but a lot of people like what he can do. So
all right, I'll ask you about one player.
Yeah.
Prochet, were you disappointed that he's no longer?
He is on the practice squad. So he is one guy I think you will see up at some point because he brings that punt return ability. But to me, no. I mean, in the wide receiver room, especially with this new kickoff, you're going to need those guys to play on special teams. So maybe Prochet eventually will get up to the squad. The one guy I was like, it would have been nice was Michael Woods. I wasn't sure him versus David Bell, but I don't know. We shall see. But they did restructure Deshaun Watson's contract today, and that clears up. The Browns have like the most cap space in the NFL as of right now, which is next year, though. Deshaun's cap number goes up because every year you do have to pay for that eventually. And the Browns are paying it cash wise, but on the salary cap, it takes the hit eventually. And the bill comes due, but the salary cap keeps going up and up and up every year. So Andrew Berry and the team up there, I totally trust what they're doing. They're numbers guys, they're analytics guys. They have a wealth of understanding and are way smarter than me. So I will, take their word for what they're doing. I think what they're doing is building up this cap space as sort of a safety net if there is a major injury where they can go acquire a player via trade and bring in a higher salary guy, or carry it over for the 2025 season. And then, you're starting at, you're not over the cap. You're right at the cap, or maybe you're slightly under, where you can go sign a couple impact players, especially if Mari Cooper, this might be his last year in Cleveland. And then, you're talking, you might have to replace some of your offensive tackles in the future. So, we shall see, but it's going to be an exciting season for the Browns.
So one more Browns question.
Yeah.
So just based on preseason, you put DTR and Huntley next to one another. Who would you have retained?
DTR. He's the younger guy, and people think very highly of him from a backup quarterback potential, can win you a couple games as a starter. And I think he's one of those guys that has scary potential, not from like an elite level starter potential, but could he be, if he had to start 5 or 6 games in the NFL for a season, if Watson got hurt or another, team, if he ended up playing for another team, I think he could be a middle of the road NFL starting quarterback for those 5 or 6 games. Now, do you want him starting for a full 17 game slate? Probably not, but I think he's got that potential to be a really serviceable guy that can, kind of be a dual threat quarterback. He's just maybe got to put on a little bit more meat on those bones too. He's kind of a scrawny guy. So So we shall see. And I believe BJ posted there that Jim Donovan retired.
No shit.
That's a sad loss. Like
health?
He's had a ton of health issues, but I believe that's interesting. We'll find out more about that. So we'll go from there. So, but he has called his last Browns game.
Sad.
So yeah. So
I like the hat, by the way.
You know what? I actually brought it down because it's red, white, and blue, and with the Olympian on. But I decided to show a little bit of hair for the interview, be a little bit more professional. But yeah,
and I brought that way down. So yeah, thanks to Joe for being less than professional.
No, it was all good, and we are very grateful for Katie taking time. I didn't ask her where she was. Sometimes she's in Atlanta, sometimes she's in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Sometimes she's up here in the Cleveland area. So
were you legitimately afraid when I said I had a question for
when you phrased it? I have a question that might be, what did you say?
I forget now.
Like a little dirty,
borderline.
Or borderline. When it's borderline, it's probably inappropriate. So,
and do you feel like I maybe over dramatized it?
No, I think it was perfect.
Okay,
and I don't think. I think you prepped her where you didn't catch her off guard.
And I asked for your permission.
Yeah.
If you give me permission to ask an inappropriate question.
Is technically your studio, so you don't
have
to.
No. You do not have to defer. Don't play that card. If you feel like it's going to be inappropriate to ask something that's below the standards of this show to a Olympian, right? You can say, Joe, no thank you, sir. You can totally say that to me.
Joe, go sit down on the couch.
You could have said that. Don't feel like I'm going to squash you. You can tell me no.
Okay. All right. Well, but when you put me on the spot like that, I'm always going to say yes.
Because you want to part of that devil on your shoulders, like, I want to hear this one.
It's like when you interview someone like, when Jim Tressel was president, when we had him on, it's like they want to see the questions beforehand so they can screen them so they know what, or you can say, oh, well, that question wasn't in the script. We don't want to talk about that. But
I made Katie Moon blush.
I'm gonna need
100%.
I'm gonna need some pre-written questions from you for the next show.
I had a golden ticket at the beginning. If you said, and I quote, Joe, if you would like to ask a question, come up to the microphone. You didn't have any prerequisites on what that question might be.
No, I didn't. But once you went there, I knew where your head was going. So yeah. So if you did miss it and you're watching now, the first 20, 25, 30 minutes of the show, we featured Olympic two-time medalist Katie Moon, gold medalist in Tokyo and reigning silver medalist in the Paris Games just 22 days ago. I think she won her medal. So pretty awesome. We appreciate her taking the time and joining the show. 330 Sports Show. Youngstown studio, Justin Coffin, Joe Danier, BJ does a ton of work in the back. Make sure to check out our YouTube page. There is a ton of great content out there with literally anything from music to comedians to random topics that Joe and Kellen and BJ and we're all over the place. So we love it. We appreciate you guys watching, listening, and following. Make sure to share with a friend. That would help us out. Everybody have a great day. We will see you next week.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook. Thank you for your support.